Hello there, beautiful people, friends and family. I hope you all are well and doing fantastic. A very warm welcome to you all to Nanaba's Kitchen. Today I am presenting to you a whole red snapper that's fried crispy. You can have that in place of turkey or whatever it is you're planning on having this season. We're using very few ingredients because we want the flavor of the fish to shine. So you know it's gonna be top notch in that flavor department. Can't wait to begin. Let's wash our hands so we can start. First thing we're gonna do, beautiful people, is to trim the fins of the fish.
And I like to do this for a few reasons. Safety is number one because the tip of the fins tend to be really pointy and sharp. Also, I like to leave a bit of them on for presentation reasons, and they also fry really crispy, which is absolutely delicious. So why trim it all off? But if you don't like the fins, you can take them completely off.
So the fish has already been gutted, gills removed. The scales have also already been removed. And what I have just done is trimmed some of the fins off, left a significant amount on because when it's fried, they lift up and look really elegant. And presentation, as you know, is everything. Next thing we're gonna do is score the fish.
And to score your fish, friends, you're going to need a knife that is very sharpened. As you can see, my fillet knife is cutting through this fish like it's nothing. Or perhaps not nothing, but something like a hot knife through butter, because you do not want to bruise your fish or disturb the meat itself. It can tear apart really easily because this fish is very, very delicate. So you want to treat it with tender, loving care. And I made some really deep incisions, and you'll see why when the fish is fried later on, it'll be easier to eat. And to see what I mean by that, please keep on watching. And if you're having fun so far, please give me a thumbs up. I have some kosher salt, a quarter teaspoon of white pepper that's crushed. You can also substitute with black pepper. And I have a quarter teaspoon of granulated garlic. That's all I'm going to use to spice and season this fish up. I combine all three in one bowl to create a dry rub of sorts. It's a lot easier to work with that way. And I proceed to sprinkle the fish with it. And the fish today is 2.5 pounds in weight, so it's substantially huge. So you want to season and spice to your preference. It is a matter of preference at this point, especially when it comes to the salt. So I am opening up those scoring incisions I made and making sure that my dry rub goes into it, directly into it. So it's going to season this and spice it up all the way to the bone. And I can feel the bone as I go in with my index finger to make way for the spice to enter the meat of the fish. And that's how deep these incisions are. Very important. You'll see. Keep on watching.
We're going to need the essence of a herb, and today's choice is good old rosemary from my backyard. We're going to place it in the belly and insert it through the roof of the head and out the mouth to stabilize it so when we fry it, it doesn't escape. This fish is ready for the fry.
And I'm using peanut oil to fry today. And as you can see, the rosemary I placed in there is sizzling, so the oil is ready. Now I'm using peanut oil because it can take on very high heat levels, which is exactly what I need to fry this fish. So I place it in gently, being careful to avoid the oil from splattering onto me. All right, so there you have it. I'm going to fry it until the skin becomes nice and crispy, but it will leave the inner layer nice and moist. That's exactly what I'm going for, and the peanut oil is going to help us do exactly that. Keep on watching, friends. It's looking good already. So I have flipped it just to give the same treatment to the other side. It's been about 4 minutes of frying on the one side, and I only flipped it, pretty much took it out of the oil immediately after flipping it, because this is a deep frying after all. So both sides were frying at the same time. If you're not subscribed to this channel, that crispy skin on that fish should move you to do so right now. All right, so I'm making something called pico de gallo. Pico de gallo is really chunky salsa. And so I have some tomatoes that just went in, and I'm also adding some jalapenos that I have seeded and chopped. This is some red onion, same treatment. And I also have some red bell pepper, which is not a traditional ingredient to add to pico de gallo, but I like the sweetness it brings to the bowl. And I'm also going to add my cilantro, which you would definitely want in a pico de gallo. But you can substitute with any herb of choice if you do not like cilantro, also known as coriander leaves. And I also have some lemon juice that I am drizzling into the pico de gallo. Lime is preferred, but I didn't have any, so you can use that for sure. I'm seasoning with some salt to taste, a little bit of crushed black pepper as well. And the lemon, as you know, is going to bring us that tang, which will balance all the flavors in the pico de gallo. Plus the citrus flavor also pairs well with the fish. Now I have made a Thai chili and garlic infused oil. So it's a chili and garlic oil that I am now drizzling onto my pico de gallo. That is an optional step, but I really wanted that chili and garlic essence in there.
Beautiful people, just like that, our fish is fried, crispy, and delicious. Now we're just going to mix up our pico de gallo.
And this pico de gallo has been given some character from that garlic and chili infused oil. So it takes it from ordinary to, it gives it pizzazz. yeah, you see what I mean. Now, this is the money moment I promised from the beginning. Moist inside. We've already confirmed how crispy it is on the outside. Now this makes for easy eating experience. Picked it right from the bone. That's all from the scoring. The food I grew up eating, I remember, was always intensely flavorful. Mostly prepared by my mom and my grandmom, who both taught me how to cook. I remember a lot of the time when my mom needed to throw flavor at savory dishes that had a tomato sauce or a tomato base, or those that didn't even have a tomato base, such as the spinach dip or abumu, even jollof rice. Her secret was canned mackerel in tomato sauce. Friends, today I bring you the homemade, fresh, beautiful version. Greetings, blessings, much love to you all, and let's begin. So you need some Roma tomatoes, and I separate the seeds and the juice from the flesh. We also need 1 green bell pepper, 1 large red bell pepper. We also need some scallions or green spring onions, some shallots, ginger, and we also need 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to include some heats by adding 1 habanero chili. Now I'm going to be adding these peppers, which mimic the flavor of petite bell chilies. We call them paposhito in Ghana. Now I do remove the seeds from these because they tend to be bitter. And for the herbs, I've chosen to use fresh rosemary, but you may use the dry. And also we're going to include 4 small bay leaves. That's it. All of these ingredients are very aromatic, and they're going to bring amazing flavors. So the seeds, the juice, and the flesh within the Roma tomatoes that I separated, I'm going to crush them, forcing just the juice through this colander turned into a strainer in this instance. And all we are left with is the juice, so I discard only the seeds. Beautiful. Now let's work on the mackerel. I picked this up from the fishmonger as usual. and they have complimentarily cleaned it for me already, so it's been gutted. And since there are no scales on the fish, all I do is wash them again and cut them into steaks whose width are about 1.5 inches thick. And to the fish I add some onion powder, crushed black pepper, some garlic powder, some salt to taste, and you do need to season it well at this stage. Now I'm also going to be adding some Worcestershire sauce. I think I didn't butcher the name this time. If you agreed, please drop a comment. I have always had a hard time with that one. Now I'm drizzling some olive oil onto this because it is a marinade after all, as I usually say. And make sure you stir everything together. Now with the Worcestershire sauce, you can always substitute that with your Maggi sauce. That'll work great, or even soy sauce. Now I'm bringing some citrus flavor here because that freshens everything. So I'm using the zest of 1 lime, and you can use lemon if that's what you have. And if you have the herb thyme, you may use that because that also offers citrus notes. You do need your citrus notes to freshen and lighten the flavors because mackerel is extremely flavorful due to the high fat content. It is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are heart healthy, very important for your heart health. So we start with olive oil in the pan, and then I add the onions, the scallions, and the shallots. And what I'm doing is just slightly caramelizing them because caramelization, as I always say, is equal to loads of flavor. Take those out and then caramelize your onions also. Just slightly caramelize them because we want to optimize all the flavors here. All these ingredients are fresh, so we want to kick it up quite a notch with caramelization. That's the technique we're using today. Now, after the onions and the peppers, I add my ginger, the garlic, the rosemary, and also my white peppercorns into the hot oil and cook it for just about 20 seconds until they start blooming, until I start smelling them. Then I go in with the flesh of the tomatoes. And I'm going to cook this down on gentle heat up until the tomatoes start tenderizing and up until I start seeing some of the juice from the tomatoes separating from the flesh. And there is exactly what I'm talking about. So you see that the skin of the tomato has become tender. It's almost detaching itself from the flesh. That's exactly what you want, and that shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. Done. Take that off of the heat and let it cool down. And then proceed by blending all of your cooked ingredients. The onions, the peppers, as well as the tomatoes, including the oil you cooked it in, and all of the juices into the blender. And the goal is to blend these ingredients till you arrive at a silky, velvety, smooth texture. If your blender is not powerful enough to do so, then you must strain, unless you don't mind that texture. Now, pour the tomato juice into the pan with the blended ingredients and add your bay leaves. Stir to combine evenly and cook on low heat for the next 15 minutes with the lid on. Now, before the lid goes on, you must clean the size of your pot if that's applicable to you, because that's just going to dry up and become a waste. And throw the lid on. The lid must be on completely so that it can come to a boil sooner, just like so. And that took about 15 minutes. Now you want to go and remove the lid and create a vent in order for some of the steam to find a route to escape, so that the sauce can start reducing, just like so. So in about 30 minutes after venting the lid, you should find some of the oil resurfacing on the top. Go back and stir it and then season. You taste first and then you season after that. We haven't added any seasoning at all to our sauce, so add your salt or your seasoning of preference to taste, and then remove the bay leaf because they are done with infusing their flavor. Thank you very much, Miss or Mr. Bay Leaf. I think it's Mr. Bay Leaf. Now we're going to add some paprika. Now this is regular paprika. It is not smoked. We need a tablespoonful of it. So paprika is really dehydrated red bell peppers that are turned into powder. Now we did add red bell peppers to start with. Those were fresh. We need that seasoned taste, that seasoned sweet taste. And you get that when you dehydrate your ingredients, the flavors become more intensified. And that's what you get from adding the smoked paprika. It also helps with the color. I have added some more of the Worcestershire sauce because we only added it to the fish in the beginning. The sauce needs some of that. And if you have your Maggi sauce, please add it then. All right. And keep that in mind when you're adding your salt because that has salt in it. All right. So now it's time to introduce the fish to the sauce. And the sauce is tasting amazing. Way better than the canned. And when you give this recipe a shot, make sure it is a huge batch, because this recipe is not going to fail you, friends. It is tried and true. Those fresh ingredients are everything. Yes, make sure you pour the juices from the fish into the pot as well, and then submerge all the fish pieces and cover it completely with a lid. No venting, still on low heat. You're going to cook for the next 30 minutes. During those 30 minutes, the fish will become poached. So we are essentially poaching the fish in this flavorful sauce. During that time too, there will be that exchange, very important exchange of flavors from the sauce into the fish and from the fish into the sauce. And it's all going to become unified. It's going to become one amazing, lovely, tasty dish. The fish holds itself together. That's one thing I love about mackerel. And see how smooth the sauce is, and a little bit of the oil has also formed on the top. So after 30 minutes of poaching, you're going to remove the lid and let it continue to simmer down for 10 more minutes on low heat, and you're done. That's all it took, friends. And just look at this beautiful mackerel and tomato sauce. Friends, this was so good. Mackerel is one flavorful fish. I love mackerel. So besides grilling it, besides frying it, this is another approach, another rendering of this amazingly delicious fish. Give this a shot. Like I said, make it in a huge batch. If you make it in a small batch, you will regret it. The best way to store these is by canning them in a mason jar, and that is another video all on its own. Canning is another story altogether, and we can tackle that on another day. But on this day, what I did was I portioned them into these glass containers with airtight lids, and they get stored in the refrigerator and freezer. Now, a few ways to use your mackerel and tomato sauce is to just add it to some jollof rice. So I've made my jollof stew already, and I have added some of my mackerel and tomato sauce into it. So on this occasion, what we're using the mackerel and tomato sauce for is as a seasoning to bring more flavor to the jollof rice. Believe me, it makes the jollof rice so tasty. It gives it a special touch, a touch of class. So add your rice to it, stir it, and cook your jollof rice as you normally would. And you will be serving an amazingly tasty jollof rice that your guests and your family, your friends will always remember. They will be wondering what the heck you threw in there that made it so good and so special. So this is just one out of the million ways you can use your mackerel and tomato sauce. It is amazing. Now, another way is to add it to your abomu or your dips. So I have this spinach dip, which we call it abomu, kuntumri abomu in Ghana. So on this occasion, it is not only bringing flavor, but also extra protein. There are 1,000,001 ways to use this mackerel in tomato sauce, and hopefully we can bring you more videos to show you. Now let's take a look at the texture of the fish itself and see how velvety, silky smooth the sauce is. The sauce is, I mean, you can drink it. It's so good. And the bone of mackerel is naturally very soft. And when cooked on low heat for a prolonged period of time, it becomes even softer to where it is fork tender. Now look at the fish. Mackerel is so delicious. Anyhow, I love it grilled, I love it fried, I love it roasted, and in this mackerel sauce, it might just end up being your favorite. Thank you so much, friends, for watching. I hope you did learn a thing or two and are inspired to try the recipe. Tilapia is loved very much in my household, as I know it is in many others. And I have been given that honorable job of presenting it in exciting ways each time I have the opportunity in order to spruce things up in the variety department. So here is one of the ways: tilapia stew. We're going to start with a dry rub consisting of garlic powder, crushed white pepper, cayenne pepper, ginger powder, cumin, all-purpose seasoning, and some salt. Stir together and you have a very tasty dry rub, which we're going to rub onto our tilapia pieces. The cumin I added is probably the most overpowering ingredient in this dry rub, so a little bit goes a long way. And cumin is perfect for fish like tilapia, which can have that algae taste. All right, now this here is tilapia that is wild caught, so it doesn't have that algae taste, but if that's the only kind of tilapia you have access to, then cumin is the way to go. So make sure that you are rubbing in this dry rub into all the crevices of this tilapia, which has been washed thoroughly with some lime juice and soaked in some ginger juice and lime zest. It really freshens up the tilapia. I have showed how I do that in a few videos I have shared previously. Then you must allow the tilapia to marinate 30 to 45 minutes at room temperature prior to frying. I'm going to be frying it today in some avocado oil that has gone into the wok. I let it come to a sizzle and then I place in my aromatics: rosemary, scallions, Scotch bonnet chili, and some fresh thyme. Tilapia needs aromatics so bad due to that distinct fresh water character it presents with most times. I have added 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour, which is going to serve the purpose of preventing the fish from sticking while it's frying. It will also help it to fry super crispy, which is what we are aiming at. Now the oil is hot enough so the fish gets placed in there safely. And then we will allow the fish to fry until crispy. We will have to go in at some point to turn them. Once the aromatics have done their job of infusing their aroma into the oil, you can take them out before they begin to burn. And here we are turning the fish and you can see it is fried super crispy. And what makes me happiest is the fact that even though it's fried crispy on the outside, it is still moist inside. That is win-win every day in Anaba's kitchen. All right, so take those out. And yes, it is important that you fry in batches. You don't want to shock the oil temperature by overloading it with too much fish at once, okay? So go back and fry the next batch and we are almost there. Our tilapia are done frying to perfection. You can actually see that crunch. It is perfect. It is now time to cook the stew, and for that we're going to need a base, which is a fresh blend of scallions, Scotch bonnet chilies, and serranos, just like that right there. And in some of the oil we cooked the fish in, we pour in thinly sliced onions, red onions that is, and fry them until they are caramelized, as that will bring us even more flavor.